Tēnā koutou katoa, no mai hoki mai ki talking performance, ko Jay Carter, aho. I te rana I kōrero anō kia Luke Mackey. Welcome back to Talking Performance. My name is Jay Carter. I'm the host, but I'm doing something a little bit differently today. This week, we're doing a collab with myself and Scott Curtis from ForeRight, the ForeRight podcast. If you haven't listened to that, get on YouTube and have a listen. And our guest today is Luke Mackey. Luke is a performance coach. Is that your title, Luke?
You can go with anything, really. You can call me anything you want, Jay.
Well, and I have in the past, quite frankly. Luke is a performance coach. He works with a number of the top golfers on the planet, Jason Day and Matt Fitzpatrick, to name a couple. But Matt Fitzpatrick's probably the one we want to focus on, Luke, because both Scott and I were captivated in the last couple of weeks. And I'm not a big golf watcher, which Scotty and I have talked about, but I couldn't get my eyes off the Ryder Cup. And you were there with Matt Fitzpatrick. Give us the elevator pitch, mate, before we dig right into it. What was that week like? And welcome.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Scott. Pleasure to be here. Yes, I was at the Ryder Cup. I was very lucky and was working with Matt for the week as part of his performance team. And for everyone at home, all the 12 members of the team had their own staff there for the week. You could bring, one of your performance staff members and a coach with you. So the Europeans, I think pretty much we had nearly, I'd say probably 6-7 coaches and probably 10 performance staff, along with the European Tour Performance Institute group, who had nutrition, doctor, physio, as well as a number of staff who were supporting the group. I think in our Teamworks channel, we had well over 150 staff and players and caddies and everything. So huge group of people. And that's being my first Ryder Cup. It's something that was probably very new to me. And I know, Jay, you're at the World Amateur Championship this week. And to be honest, it's just a much larger, more intense version of that, I'd say.
Mate, you've been to a few things, right? Like, golf's not your only sport, but if we say with golf, you've been to World Amateur, obviously, you've been to major championships, you've been to the Olympics. What is the difference? I mean, there must come a time where you kind of go, you get the sense this is status quo, but then looking at the reactions of some of those players, that post-interview, they're all in tears, crying. Yeah, what was that like for you, like being there and seeing that?
Yeah, so I think quite a few countries have, inner city, inter-county, interstate matches. So for us, I said to a friend the other day, it was like an interstate series times a World Amateur, times a major, times the Olympics, and then put on steroids. A number of people said this one in particular maybe had a little bit more oomph to it. So I was very, very lucky to experience that. The New York crowd certainly gave us raise the level of intensity, I think would be something. It was, the intensity level for me was something that I hadn't experienced in and around golf before. And that's probably what surprised me the most, to be honest.
Right.
Luke, a little bit different tact here, but there were rumours of the bill being in the hundreds of thousands of dollars afterwards at the bar. Were you a part of that?
I was around the celebrations, I'll say. I cannot confirm nor deny the bill. But the boys did an amazing job in celebrating, and, so they deserve to. So I couldn't tell you what the bill got to, but there's plenty of videos on social media, I think, that have captured them enjoying the moment.
What is it about the Ryder Cup that has such importance to the players? Is it something that they come into the week with, or is that sort of built spending time with the team sort of in the week leading up to it?
I think it's, I can only speak for the European group, and, I'll say that the players and the captains and the caddies are sort of one group, and then, we're there very much in a support role. And I know there's sort of many meetings and moments the team had together in the last 12 months that builds that up. But there's also a lot of guys like, it was Matt's fourth Ryder Cup, so he's been there before, and he's had the likes of some of Europe's greatest ever players as teammates, captains around him, over maybe a 10-year span. So, the stories and things that come along with that, I think, build and elevate that. And I don't think it's any different to the way that, a young All Black comes into it, or a young Socceroo, or, you name the international team in sport where you have professionals, so soccer players, NBA, like the American team do an amazing job in basketball when it comes to the Olympics. These guys are paid a lot of money to do their job every single day. and represent themselves most of the time. And I think it's sort of something that sits above and beyond that. There's no FedEx Cup points. There's no prize money, tongue in cheek, particularly for the Europe group. And I think that's part of what makes it really special is you're playing for something sort of bigger than yourself, and particularly for golf. These guys only get to share these moments together as individuals. It's a bit like when you're a kid and you play for your home golf club or, your state or your country at the World Amateur. Like these are moments that you get to practice, prepare, and play together. And I think that's what elevates it big time.
I think that's a good point. Like this week, obviously, as you mentioned, I'm at the World Amateur with our team of Cooper, Zach, and Robbie. And it was lovely for guys like Ryan Fox, Dan Hillier, and Kazuma Kabori to send messages of support to the players, and they look back fondly. I think Foxy played in 2012, but still looks back fondly of playing as a team and as you say, Luke, being able to prepare. As a performance coach, how did you go about it? Like, are you having to balance other, like the team-based stuff? Like, normally I suspect it's just you and Matt or you and Matt's team and you get to do what you like. But in this case, I suspect Matt's got some team obligations too. How do you work in and around that?
Yeah, it's European tour staff make it so easy. They're a well-oiled machine. And I think it was, and I don't want to get this wrong, but I think it was Thomas Bjorn who, maybe 4 or 5 Ryder Cups ago said, we need to really, elevate the performance component around these guys because that's what they're used to week in, week out. So we had a gym set up at the hotel. And when I say gym set up, they gutted what was at the hotel and put in what the boys would expect to have at a normal tour event. That includes flooring, pool, recovery baths. Big shout out to the C11 recovery boys who did an incredible job having, setting things up both at the course and at the hotel. So then when we get to the when we get to the golf course, both Europe and the US, and I don't know if you've seen any vision of it online with, particularly the DP World did a pretty good job in posting it. They had basically a marquee set up at the golf course. So we walked in and it was Team Europe. So I walked in and there was a front office. To my left was a full locker room. And we had a locker room attendant the whole week looking after the boys. They had all their locker set up. Out the back was showers. You walked into a huge gym area. I want to say, someone might correct me, it'd be 25 meters long by 10 meters wide, like a huge space. Sauna, recovery bars, recovery boots. We had 6 to 8 massage tables set up for staff, and then a huge space for a couple of squat racks, bikes, treadmill, everything set up so the guys could prepare like they normally would. And then out the back behind there was our nutrition station, so that was pretty much a like a lounge set up for the players, and they can pretty much have anything they need sorted for the week. So that's what they're used to. And then within that, so in that team environment, Matt has certain obligations in regards to team meetings. Ultimately as a partner. So I think it was 7:10 on Friday morning, him and his partner are warming up on the range together. However, it wasn't, hey, let's meet on the range at 6:30 and hit balls. You go through your normal routine. So, I think for Matt, he starts maybe 30 minutes before Ludwig. So, but the boys meet on the putting green before they go out in the first. They know exactly what they have to do, but they respect each other, that each other's going to get the job done in regards to their own preparation. And then, we'd go out together from there.
Look, when you say that's what they'd expect, that's normal. Is that give us what a day at a normal DP Tour event for a Matt might look like? Like, let's say a morning tee time, what time he wakes up, what the gym will look like, whether it's pre or post, and then how that differs at the Ryder Cup where he's got to play 36 holes or the potential to play 36 holes in a day. Because I think people will be really interested, like you go and watch the All Blacks, and you would have seen that they beat Australia despite you texting me 20 minutes into the game asking me about that. So yes, well done. You would, but they look big and they look fast and they look fit and they look athletic, and of course they go to the gym because they have to, but I'm not sure people appreciate how hard some of these top professionals work. So yeah, can you shed some insight into what that looks like from, I guess, wake up to recovery right through?
Yeah, I think our first morning was maybe a 3:45 a.m. alarm. 4:20 car. 4:20 car took about, I think we allowed 40 minutes to get there, but probably took about 30 with a police escort. It's New York traffic, Long Island traffic. It's horrible. And, that was the first morning getting there. I mean, the gates opened, I think, at 5. So you had people, the trains racing out from New York from 4 o'clock in the morning. So it was hectic early. We were on site by 5. I think Matt sort of allows 20 minutes to half an hour for food and just to organise himself at the course. So now it's sort of 5:30. Start gym warm up. Gym warm up goes for about 20, 25 minutes. Give yourself sort of 5 minutes to change. And the property was quite big, so it's then head to the putting green for 10 minutes. Meet Phil Kenyon, putting coach. They sort of do 10, 15 minutes of pretty specific work. And things that most people wouldn't know. Like Phil knew that they'd cut and rolled the greens that morning, and so the speed of the green was different. So Matt gets to even getting to the first green, he already knows some of this information that, wasn't privy to the day before, that most people just wouldn't understand. That the day before they're practicing on a green that's a different speed. The idea is that most courses sort of prep as the week goes on, but Wednesday, a normal week on a Thursday start, it's different speed to Wednesday. So onto the range, we've got about 45 minutes worth of work, which includes sort of walking across, getting, from wedge all the way through to driver, chip around, a little bit of a putt, first tee. Matt might tell a slightly different story. We were sort of up in the air as to whether Matt would be playing Friday afternoon as well, but we had to prepare like he was. So gets through 15 holes, him and Ludwig won Friday morning. And we had, supported by David Dunn and the nutrition team and just the logistics of the week, we had the recovery shakes ready to go on the back of the 15th. Matt has that inside, gets told that he's not going to play for the afternoon. So we went and did a gym session, full recovery, and then supported the boys for the last 6-7 holes. So that's unique in itself, right? It's very normal for, the World Am team. You go out and support your mate who's still on the golf course. You got the best players in the world wanting to run back down the fairway to watch their mates, compete and play and hopefully win. So, and that's caddies as well. So that camaraderie is something that's quite unique to the week. Maybe not so much for us in the amateur set in space and Walker Cups and things like that, college events, but this happening at the top level I think is pretty cool. And then so if I fast forward to Saturday, Matt did play on Saturday afternoon and Saturday morning. So this is part of the unique thing for me as a staff member working with, I had 15 to 20 other people that were there to support me with anything I needed for the week to support Matt. And we all sort of chatted on Friday night with a few of them. It's like, what did you do today when, so-and-so had to repeat again? Like, what does it normally look like? And, quite a few of us said, we've never done it before. Like, some of these guys haven't done it for 12, 15 years, had to play 36 in a day. We don't have the match play on the schedule anymore. So some of it is a little bit of Matt had some systems and processes in place that previous team members that had worked through. So we wanted, our theme was that we wanted to stay ready. He didn't want to shut it down and then have to start the motor again, so to speak. So some guys will want to completely switch off, eye mask on, maybe even have a 20-minute kip, put the recovery boots on, the Normatex. Whereas for Matt, it was I want to eat and then I'm going to stay ready. So we did a pretty short, sharp 7-minute physical warm-up, and then he did an abbreviated version of the morning warm-up, so probably hit for 30 minutes, putted for a little bit, and then off he went. But it's very much about recuperating energy and fueling really well.
Players were raving about Luke Donald as captain, especially his attention to detail. And Luke himself mentioned one of the small things was replacing all the bedding in the hotel to make it more comfortable. So a couple of things here. What are some other small things that you noticed that you think made a difference or that the general public just wouldn't think of? And was there anything they may have missed that you potentially would have done differently?
Being it's my first Ryder Cup, it's hard to comment on, what they've done previously. They obviously picked a really specific time to do their pre-camp, which was, straight after Wentworth as a group. They all played Wentworth. And then, that's something that there was already some, there's a team dinner on the Tuesday night at Wentworth. All the guys played. There was obviously conversations. Some of the vice captains were there. One of them happened to win that week, which was quite cool. I don't know if you follow the DP World Tour or for people watching, it's worth jumping on the European Tour Performance Institute, so ETPI on Instagram, or Ryder Cup Europe, because the camaraderie started, I don't know if you see the Sunday night after Wentworth and Alex Noren walks into the airport and the guys are, they're buzzing for him. And then they had the charter across and then they did Monday, Tuesday. So they had 9 holes Monday, 9 holes Tuesday. They stayed around, did some media stuff Wednesday morning. And then the idea was that you stay on East Coast time. So a lot of guys, funnily enough, went and had some golf trips. So some of the players went and played, and you speak to them and they say it's some of the best golf they've ever played. And there's, photos on Instagram of them at Friar's Head and Cypress, sorry, not Cypress, Pine Valley. For Matt and I, we went down and Dan Parrott, his caddy, we went down to see Mark Blackburn in Alabama. We just had a little sort of training camp, little data collection for a couple of days. Matt had the weekend off before, and we were all back together again on the Monday. So the group was relatively relaxed. Just from my point of view, I think going in, and Luke did a really good job. Like it was, he thought about it before. He's obviously did a really good job in Rome with it. The logistics are huge. Like there's obviously the opening ceremony got switched around this time from Thursday night to Wednesday night because of weather. The boys adapted pretty well. We got out and played some holes on Thursday morning as well before the rain came in. So yeah, I think the East Coast time was really big. There's often in golf, you're very limited in being able to do much more than a 3-day prep in regards to a big event. Like if it's golf event starts on a Thursday, you've normally played the week before. So a lot of these big events, and for those who follow the schedule, there's a lot of elevated events before and after majors, this year and next year. So, guys are pretty good at turning things around pretty quickly, but I think this was probably quite a long prep, but ended up being I'd say the right way to do it.
Hey, Mackie, I'm interested. Before you said you didn't know that Matt was playing in the afternoon. Watching the coverage, I would have assumed that all of that stuff was like Matt would have known, right? You're playing Friday morning, you're not playing Friday afternoon, you're playing Saturday morning. So, and I assume they know who they're playing with, but based on the fact that it's a combination thing, if Matt didn't even know he was playing, well, then he either took out his potential partner as well, or so how are they making those decisions? Are you able to share that?
Yeah, well, I think if you look at, and I think I'm right here, I don't want to sound like I'm a bit silly here, but I'm pretty sure every player had played by Friday night on both teams. And I think it's quite well known that you want to get everybody out at least once on Friday. I believe that was the plan to start with. The exact pairings and groupings and things and who tees off where and alternate shot and things like that. That's probably something that, well, it's definitely something that I know in speaking to Europe, that's definitely what they had planned. But the ability to stay agile in how you do your Friday, and I'm not sure what if you're 4-0 down Friday lunchtime, you might make a change. If you're 4-0 up, you might make a change. I don't think either team did, and I think for the most part, neither team made a change Saturday morning either. I think Saturday afternoons is where some of the the coaching and discussions came in as to who was playing with who. And sometimes it's you're tracking players obviously, and who's playing well and who's not. So that comes into it a little bit. We also had the unique experience of Matt was due to play with Victor Hovland on Saturday afternoon. So we'd done the re-warm up, and Matt was on the range, and I don't think Matt knew at the time. And Tyrrell and his team had sort of stepped onto the range, and I just figured that Tyrrell was doing his normal sort of recovery warm down. I just spoke to physio, and he goes, "We might be playing with you. We're on watch." And Victor had just stepped on the range, hit some balls, and he sort of got to driver, and he was really uncomfortable. And I think that's there's vision of that. That's all in the media, and by the time we got back, Matt's about 30 seconds from getting out onto the getting out on the first tee, and the team manager came over and said, "Yep, we're Matt, you'll be playing with Tyrrell this afternoon." And it turned out to be amazing. Like Matt gets along with everyone, and Tyrrell are quite close, so it ended up being for all those who watched it was an incredible finish, and the boys won on the last. So kudos to Team Europe for having a backup plan, which was only decided 30 seconds before Matt went to the first tee. So
the pairings for Friday afternoon were done on the fly Friday morning. Not the pairings, sorry. The pairings were probably done, but which pairings they were going to play was a little bit on the fly.
So you're told on Friday morning that this is probably what's going to happen, but you better be ready to play for whatever reason. And in Tyrrell's case, he was. Tyrrell's case, he was ready to go Saturday afternoon. So that's where it's probably one of those unique ones. It's not often that you get told that you're not playing and then you are going to play. So, in Tyrrell's case, he did an amazing job to be able to turn that around in a sort of window, really. And kudos to his team as well.
How much say do the players have in those pairings? There's obviously a lot of data that goes into selecting them now, and they can figure out whose game works well with who else. Does Matt have much say in who he wants to play with?
Yeah, I think there's some things I definitely am not aware of because I'm not at that level with the team. But there's a lot of honesty when it comes, hey Jay, you're likely to play with Scott next week. How you feel about that? Yeah, I feel great. I love Scott. He's going really good. It's there's not like there's anyone that hates anyone or anything like that. There's a lot of time and energy and effort that goes in, and Eduardo Molinari supports that as one of the vice captains. He's obviously a very astute man and knows his data and stats. So, he had things pretty well scripted for the group to make a pretty good decision. Matt was not averse to playing with anyone. He could have played with anyone. It didn't really bother him too much. There's just certain people that in certain ways and certain holes and maybe a little bit of personality stuff just matches up really well. I think Rory and Shane are probably one of those pairings. They've obviously been mates for a long time and they've played a lot together. Same with, Tommy and Rosie have played a lot together. So that definitely would come into it as well.
And kind of still along the data route, do you have different game plans based on who you're paired up against, or golf's a different sport than most because you're kind of playing against the course, but you do have different opponents. Is there any different approaches depending on the opponents?
That's a good question. For those who watched, Fitzy and Bryson, there's Matt got off to a really hot start, and Bryson came home with 5 birdies in a row on that back nine, and it was just one of the most intense moments in sport I've experienced. So you'd hope that your game has the ability to match up against anyone on the opposition team. I think in some ways Matt's game matched up incredibly well to Bryson because most of the time Matt, gives away 10 or 15 yards to Bryson, and Bryson does that to most people. But Matt's iron play was, he's sort of ranked top 10 in the world at the moment, and so he had the first shot into every green for the most part on that front nine, and hit the ball incredibly well and put Bryson under a lot of pressure. So I think Matt himself had 3 or 4 in a row to start in that front nine, and he's hit that first shot. So for Bryson, he knows there's a ball 10 foot from the pin, 4 or 5 holes in a row, he's going to be under the pump a little bit, and he just didn't play that great in that front nine. I think that was due to Matt's game. So, and then when it comes to the pairings, there's definitely an advantage if you've got one guy who's an incredibly good driver of the ball or who might carry the ball a little bit further. And I know, we did that pretty effectively. Ludwig and Matt played together a couple of days, and Ludwig drove the ball incredibly well on Friday. And just put Matt in some incredible positions. So that teamwork or that combination worked exceptionally well. Obviously had an amazing win. So, it definitely does come into it.
Luke, did you talk to any of the players? I remember Colin Montgomery saying he was so nervous on the first tee of the Ryder Cup that he's just started doing the 13 times tables in his head to try and distract himself, and he had to hit it when he got to 39 because he couldn't go any further. Did you talk to Matt about the pressure and how they were feeling? Are they shitting themselves?
Definitely speak to a few players. There's definitely a different energy to the week, full stop. So you already know, and European Tour did an amazing job at Rome, and Rome was probably even more of a coliseum than this was at Bethpage, just due to the fact that the 18th green was next to the first tee. So they did have that stadium feel, but in Rome it was literally on top of the first tee. And you can hear the crowd. It's like you're walking out into a stadium to play any team sport on a pitch type thing. It is really loud. So, they estimate there was 25,000 people on the first tee on Friday. And, people are going pretty nuts at 7:00 in the morning too. It's not safe just for the afternoon tee times. Players definitely feel a sense of this is a little bit different. And even the way that it's announced in and you announce the team. So the guys actually have to spend longer on the first tee than they normally would as well. And the gaps between the groups are a little bit longer. So there's, it's a bit like the difference between, a semi-final and a grand final type thing, or a regular season game to a grand final. Everything's just a little bit bigger, a little bit louder, a little bit more intense. There's a little bit more time. There's an extra announcement, an extra anthem. So yeah, you can definitely get the sense of that. Not that I asked the players specifically, are you nervous, so to speak, but on what day was it? Did we have Friday afternoon? I mean, Donald Trump walked out in the first tee on Friday afternoon,
Yeah.
and I'm 10 meters away from him. That was an incredible experience. He walked out with Bryson to rock music, AC/DC or something. So that's wild. That doesn't happen every week. If in any sport. So that gives you sort of goosebumps just thinking about it, really.
And people talk about like when the pressure's on, lean into it and embrace it and all that stuff. Do you guys do any pre-mortem, or did the team that you know of, did they do any pre-mortem around, hey, you're likely to get some abuse here? So over and above pressure, I think some of the volatile crowds, do they pre-mortem that stuff and do some prep work on it and help the players? And if so, what strategies do the players use to help deal with that?
I can't speak to all the strategies because there's a few strategies that were utilised, I think, throughout the week that were probably not part of the plan.
I may have seen some of them.
Yeah, and I won't use those words on this on this podcast. They were definitely warned, 100%. For people who know the US crowds really well, like Long Island, New York crowds, that northeast are very boisterous, very loud, and every country's got a particular location. If I don't know what the particular place that the All Blacks have that's more boisterous or louder, or that they always win type place.
Anywhere in Australia.
Yeah, well done. I walked into that one. So the players were very aware it was going to happen. Everyone had their own individual systems and processes in place for that. They obviously had their caddy there to support them. They had vice captains that were there. So, you'd see a lot of vice captains floating around the back of greens, or even just walk a few holes with them. So you've always got a sense of support. And then that was probably the other thing. Friday morning, I'm there with, with Ludwig's physio, his coach, his psychologist, Ludwig's girlfriend, Matt's team. And, there's a little sort of 6 to 10 of us walking around, plus vice captains, plus 2 caddies, plus another player. So, there's like a small little team. There's maybe 10 to 15 of us that were all supporting the player basically every step of the way. The players are on the course doing their thing, but we were inside the ropes wearing blue shirts, in team uniform. So there's a sense that we had a little pod of support always there. And we were warned which holes or which greens, ninth green, 10th tee was a big one. 6th green was a big one. And then sort of as you come back across the road at Bethpage, it was sort of, 15, 16, 17 was just, amazing to see. And even the par 3 on Sunday, 14 was started to get a lot noisier through there. So, the players were aware of it. We were aware of it. When people are yelling at you, a little fist bump or a little delicious protein smoothie on the back of 12 is always nice. So that was my role, just to be there and be a support. Yeah.
I've listened to Owen Eastwood's podcast the last couple of days, the Invincible podcast, and he has Luke Donald on as a guest in episode 2. Luke Donald actually talks about how he tried to create a sense of belonging for the Ryder Cup team, and it really looks like from a viewer's point of view that they have that, just the way they celebrate and get on with each other. How do you go about creating a sense of belonging in an individual sport away from the Ryder Cup? I know you're part of Matt's wider team. How many people are part of that team? Do you kind of meet together, or is it kind of individually with each of his different parts of that team? So how do you go about sort of feeling like you belong as part of that team?
It's a great question. I'll go with the Ryder Cup first, and something you may have noticed is there was, some different colours and different uniforms this year, and they were all past away winning teams was a big theme of the Ryder Cup, and Luke carried that through, referenced all the other times that, backs against the wall, worse crowds, away crowds, team away from home, and those moments. And I think he connected some past players, connected some past caddies, some past, captains there, team uniform. Obviously, there's a great photo of Luke. I think it's it's in the trophy room, the 4 previous away Sunday uniforms with Luke sitting there, looking at the trophy with what is now the next away uniform. So that type of stuff, I think it means something a bit different, but also the people he had around the group. So you've got past players who are captains in the team that can talk to that. And, there's some things in the team room that they did that I won't mention. It's not really my place, that I was sort of made aware of later in the week that they did to, really connect the group. And in regards to the difference of that week to week, I think it's something that in individual sport, I've spoken to a few staff members in some other individual sports of, in the past month. And, the term team comes into it because you have a player, and in golf, it's caddy. You have to have a caddy at the top level, your coach, physio, or strength and conditioning person in there, someone sort of physical in and around that group. Normally got a partner, girlfriend, wife, whoever it might be. Sometimes you got friends or family that come and watch. And then, from there it's stats, biomechanics, practice coaches, putting, So all of a sudden it starts to creep up. Now, I can't speak for every player. I can sort of only speak for a couple of them, but they have select people and during select weeks for select reasons. Majors are a big one. Some guys, want to have a big group in a house for the week. And sometimes the majors are the best for that because, they're often in unique places they haven't been before. Or haven't been in there for a while. So, quite often get an Airbnb and there's 6 of you in a house and cooking dinners together, having a laugh together, watching funny movies at night, just trying to spend some time, just like you would if you're, I'm sure the All Blacks do, or the Socceroos or wherever. When you're on an away trip, you spend so much time together in the team room and, guys are playing ping pong or hacky sack or cricket or, all the little things that they do. I think the Australian cricket team have a rugby game before they play, and then it's the Australian rugby team that play cricket before they play, like on their team walk of the morning. So, they just want to play ball sports and things like that. Like what keeps the group together, stay competitive, stay light. Yeah. And that's sort of the team component.
Do you reckon there'd be value if they could create, like does Matt ever look at that and go, all right, that's interesting that because there's some feels greater than the parts, right? And when you watch that Ryder Cup team come together, do you think those players ever go, I wonder if I could do that with my team? Or is there too much energy? And I suspect that week after for those guys is pretty tough as well. Not in terms of necessarily recovering from the night, but just recovering, and it could be biased, but Rory looked a little bit like a dead man walking on that final singles match. Like he looked emotionally shattered. I'd love to see, I know he's into Whoop, I'd love to see his Whoop stuff for that week. That's not sustainable, I would imagine, that level of intensity.
Yeah, it's kind of why I call it, referred to as like a grand final or a cup final or something. Like it's the, crescendo of a huge week. I don't know how, Bobby Mack and Tyrrell finished first and second last week at Dunhill.
Yeah.
The only way I can think is that they played in, it's a pro-am that week. And I think both of them had, partners who they get along really well with that they've played with before. So, and you play 3 different courses and there's like a real sense of, more a relaxed nature. There's dogs on the golf course and things. And I just think that's probably why they were able to play well last week. Matt played, with his family. His brother played with mum and Matt played with dad. And I think that gives the ability that they can like chill out and really enjoy that week. If it was like for FedEx Cup points or, a major or something like that, it'd be really difficult. And it's something, to be honest, that, I don't have the data at the moment, but the injury rate is up a fair bit in golf at the moment, and it's something that's not really been talked about. But because we have the top 60 to 70 guys playing the elevated events of the majors quite consistently, if you look at the way the schedule's been built out lately, guys are playing weeks that they wouldn't normally choose. So you would never play a week after a major. Top players never ever do it. Now 3 of the 4 majors have an elevated event the week after or a week before. So the intensity at the moment is 2-3 weeks at a time, and the density of the schedule is really high for the top group. And regardless, to be honest, because the guys that aren't playing elevated events don't have a choice. They can't play those and maybe don't play majors, so they have to play all the others. So schedule's kind of picked for you at the moment, which is quite unique in our sport, I'd say. And I think tennis is sort of going through the same thing.
Might have been a couple of years ago now, Luke, but I was working in the same office as Jay, and he walked in one day and said, Luke Mackey is having
Hold on.
lunch
Where are you going with this? Sorry, Scott.
Luke Mackey is having lunch with someone. Guess who it is? And he told me. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this. If not, we'll stop it here.
Depends who it is.
Jay, were you going to stop me?
No, you keep going. You can keep going.
Okay. So Jay came in and told me that you were having lunch with Michael Jordan. Are you allowed to talk about that? That made me nervous when he told me about that. How did you feel going into that? And what was that like?
Yeah, amazing. Something me very personally, I like to, seek out people who are doing great things in sport and life and leadership. I was told very early in my career, if someone has a job you think you want, you better go and meet them or shadow them. So something I try and do unapologetically is cold call people quite often still to this day. And I did it very recently with Darren Cahill, who coaches Yannick Sinner, who, really kindly gave up 45 minutes of his time for me and him to have a chat about the unique nature of our sport, individual sport and travelling and time away from family and things like that. And it's really nice to stay connected to people like that. And I suppose one of my values would be curiosity. I'm just really curious to know the why. So, for Matt, it was, who's someone that you'd like to meet, or who's someone you would look up to, and who's done something incredible that you think you could learn something from. We're able to, Matt's a member of the Grove, which is the, Michael Jordan owned course. So we're very lucky to have the head pro down there, Darren, set up a meeting for us. We chatted to him for about 45 minutes, and it was definitely nervous to go and meet him, but he was unbelievable. He was so kind, so friendly. And, for probably about the last 20 minutes, it was just Matt and him talking about experiences of maybe, what makes them tick, how they thought about things, how they approach things, and, to be sort of a fly on the wall or be part of the conversation, able to ask him a couple of questions. Every time I've seen him in the past, and for those who saw him at the Ryder Cup, like he just, especially around golf, he loves his golf. He's just got the biggest, warmest smile. And, he was obviously an absolute savage when he played. But even then, like, if you I watched The Last Dance on the plane right on the way over when we were going to catch up with him. And even then, he still has this joy when he played. Like, he still laughed and smiled. And, in the same way, if I was playing golf with you two and I, rolled in a 6-footer on the last to beat you, I'd be laughing and giving you a bit of shit and, smiling and things like that. And I think he definitely has that. So that sort of youthful exuberance, I think, still comes through with him. He's very highly competitive. And yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, pinch me moment.
How old are you, Mackey?
37.
So I think we'll discuss this occasionally, but I reckon you were 19 when I met you.
I think so.
You were doing an internship, I think, with the university you were starting at. And it has been really cool to see you. And you've always, like you said, your curiosity's high, you've got high energy, and you always have had a knack of hunting down people, that you want to connect with. So you've had Michael Jordan. Who's next on the list, man? Like, how do you've clocked it. You're just like, right, I'm out now, boys. I'm done. Like, who are you going to next?
It is interesting because I've gone through the same process, and he won't mind me. Well, I will say, I did ask this question of one of my other players, and he said the greats are the greats, but he came up with the name Al Horford. Now, Al Horford, I think, has just been traded to Golden State Warriors, and he's maybe 42 years of age. He's been in the NBA for 20 years, and he's not mentioned in the top 5 to 10 people in his position. He's never won an MVP. I think he's won a couple of championships. And a friend of mine said, I want to know why Al Horford keeps playing. How does he get up every day? He's 42 years of age. He's been playing this sport for 20 years, and he's still in the starting 5. He was with Boston the last couple of years, and he's still going. Like, what makes him tick? Because I know if you're the best of the best, it's obvious why you tick. But someone like Al Horford, what makes him tick? And I really like that. That once again, that's my curiosity coming in. I'm fascinated by that comment. So I want to go meet some more Al Horfords of the world. He plays a very specific position. He's a massive human. He plays the big man in the NBA for all the NBA fans out there. How does he keep doing it? And he's relatively injury-free, so he's obviously doing something right. But to go back to the other question it also comes down to the coaches and the athletes that I work with is who do they want to meet and what do they want to get out of it. Matt absolutely loves his football or soccer for the Southern Hemisphere crew. So, we've been to a few football clubs, see how they tick, what they do with their stats and data, how they communicate with their people, how they develop their athletes. It's a different sport. So they, in theory, they have different problems than we do. But they still have to make big decisions. They still have to communicate really well. They still have to have top-down alignment from, ownership to CEO to football club manager to, to players. They still deal with poor form and great results and things like that. So, there's some of my learnings that I have there. There's hundreds of people on the planet I'd like to meet. So feel free to throw some names at me, boys, and I'll hunt them down for you.
Scotty was getting a bit of a smile on when you were talking about NBA. So, Scotty, you've got to pick that up and run with it, I'm sure.
Yeah. Big NBA fan. Love watching that. I don't know if he's quite 42. I might be wrong. I think he's 39, but he's one of the older ones, but he's up there anyway. Bit of a surprise that he made that trade, but maybe potentially one last chance at capturing another ring with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and Golden State. So there's a couple of names that you could you could maybe call in on while you're there.
No worries.
Pretty cool.
I'll hunt them down for you.
Maybe heading away slightly from definitely from the NBA, but Matt played in the inaugural TGL, the Tiger, or the golf league, the indoor golf league. Did you have anything to do with that? Did you go and watch any of the matches in there? And I think from memory, was he in the New York team? He still got a bit of banter from the crowd, so obviously that didn't play into his hands being part of the New York Golf Club. Tell us a little bit about that if you had the opportunity.
Yeah, I did go down, and it's a very interesting concept because I think I was quite surprised potentially how well it did in its first year, and I think it actually sort of maybe exceeded the expectations of ownership and broadcast and things. It's definitely a for TV product. It's a little bit like the Big Bash League here in Australia for cricket fans. Like we have a Big Bash game, I think like 50 nights in a row across the summer, and during the summer, you've had Christmas Day, you've had leftovers and stuff. It's like, geez, at 6:30, there's got to be a Big Bash game coming on. Oh, Tasmania versus South Australia. Get me in. I want to see this. So there's a little bit of that. And I think they get the post-football. They've got like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights, maybe a couple of Sunday nights. So, for the American fans out there, that, Monday night football's huge. Sunday night football's huge as well. So when that finishes in sort of early Feb, I think they've tapped into that market. The actual stadium itself is like ginormous. I think it only seats about 5,000 people at the moment. But, the fact that the players are mic'd up and you can hear a bit of the banter and the celebration, I think that stuff, these guys are highly competitive, so they want to win. Don't you worry about that. I think Matt said he really enjoyed it. It's pretty cool. I don't know if they've got too much vision of the locker rooms out the back, but they've got like 4 simulators next to each other all lined up with TrackMan. So the guys are in there like warming up next to each other, smashing driver. And, it looks like there's obviously plenty of simulator places set up around the world now where people can go and have a drink and stuff. But it's like the 4 best players in the world are whacking balls in the sim next to each other. Little gym set up in the back there too. So they've got like proper locker room set up. It's pretty cool. So the concept's just, I think it's going to grow. People just love golf. People like watching golf. And if you get Justin Thomas and Billy Horschel, 2 guys are, fit larrikins, and they, chat away between shots and talk about messing up or going well or falling over when you hold a putt, things like that. It's really cool. And a lot of sports really play into it. Most of the team sports do that kind of thing in the preseason. If you ever go to an All Blacks Open Day, or, your rugby club plays a regional game, against another team as a practice match, and they don't play in their home stadium in Auckland. They go out and play regionally somewhere, and, there's heaps of kids around, and they have events afterwards. It's that kind of vibe, I think. It might be a little bit more corporate than that, but yeah, it's pretty intense. They have music going and celebs and stuff. It's pretty cool.
When you say made for TV, I do want to come back to the TGL thing, but I thought that with the Ryder Cup, like, shit, the TV experience was cool. Like, the coverage was great. You're always seeing good players. You're always seeing shots. I think match plays, it's got its limitations from some of the worlds that we live in, but it's cool for that. And I think, Scotty, you and I were talking, like, I think I'd rather watch the Ryder Cup on TV than be there, because being there, it looked like you'd be 6 rows deep, trying to get a glimpse of one shot here and there. Obviously, the atmosphere would be huge. But, and I know, yeah. But what are your thoughts on that? Like, is going live as a punter, obviously you were inside the ropes, but it must be a bit of a mission if you're outside of the ropes.
It was, and there's the normal spots, but for people who, followed the Ryder Cup, I think we're 4 Ryder Cups ago now, the Golf National. So they custom built the course specifically for that. And they had, you've been there, Jay, I think for Olympics or for World Amateur, like they custom built it. So every fairway was in a little valley, and they had fans all the way down the side. So you were down looking like you would if you went to a tennis or basketball, netball, whatever match. You're above and elevated. So they had that with, I think, 15, 16 and 18 greens next to each other. So that bowl again, for both the Olympics and the Ryder Cup and even the World Am, it was an amazing spectacle to have that, to have that sort of Coliseum stadium feel to it. Bethpage was a little hard because most of the greens were elevated, so it was quite difficult in some locations to watch it. But that was more the shape of the golf course as opposed to, necessarily being 20 rows deep. I think for anyone who's been to golf before, it's it was like if it was rugby equivalent, it's like I've been watching, I don't know, the under sevens at my local club, and then I've gone to watch the All Blacks in a home World Cup final. Like, it was just the biggest difference I've ever felt. And, you know, there's 50,000 people there going for the team wearing red. Not like, oh,
Yeah.
there's Jay. He's good at golf. Let's clap Jay. Oh, look, there's Scott. He also hit a shot. Well done, Scott. Like, no, I want Jay to beat Scott, and I want him to beat him very badly. So I'm going to support Jay a lot. And when Scott hits a shot, I'm going to boo him. That feeling
Yeah.
is amazing. And that's why, you know, for fans out there who saw it, I hope if you ever get the chance to do a trip somewhere and watch it, like, I think Adair Manor will be amazing. And the following Ryder Cups, it's like nothing I'd ever experienced before in the sport.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Were the crowds as bad as what everybody said?
Yes. Plain and simply, yes.
Oh shit! I had another question there. It was
You were
about the
going to go
Ryder
back to
Cup.
the TGL, I think, Jay.
Oh yeah, TGL. This might be a controversial question, but you sometimes got the sense the players didn't quite trust the technology.
It is the biggest screen in the world for its type. So if you think about a normal screen, which is, I don't know, how big's a normal screen for simulator golf? 2 meters? 3 meters? This was 30 meters high. So the technology is the first of its kind, and it's the first iteration of. So I think the version that we're getting this season is a better version of what we've had before. And I think that's one thing first. It is simulator golf, so you've got to hit the ball. I think the ball travels 20 or 30 meters, so there is an algorithm that goes into the next component of it. In terms of speeds and feel, like, I don't know if you saw, but there's, like, you know, long grass, short grass. They've got to hit out of sand. So it's as real of a version of that as we're going to get, unless we're going to go outside and actually watch a ball. Now, for people, you know, if I took my dad to the golf and we were standing next to Bryson or Fitzy or JT or whoever, and they hit a ball, it's pretty hard to see that ball unless you're standing right behind them, rocket off the club face and go 300 meters. So this allows people to feel more involved and see the ball flight and things like that. So I think they've done a pretty impressive job from an accuracy standpoint, I think, for the scale that they built.
Yeah, and it was a good it was a good watch. And it's interesting to hear, like you say, the players are competitive, and I think people overlook that. They just a Foxy would be a classic for that. You could go and have I don't know, he'll challenge you on anything, which is possibly why they're so successful. Going back to the Ryder Cup, mate, what learnings, or how do you and Fitzy, obviously, how do you review that week? Like, are there learnings? You mentioned before he played Bryson, he was 5 up and ended up with a half. And you said Bryson made 5 birdies in a row. The pressure that, like, I'd love to have some work data or heart rate data on Matt on that putt that he had on 17. You know, do you guys review that and reflect that? Is that part of your role as his performance coach to go through some of that? From the Netflix series, you know, he looks like a pretty thorough dude. How do you help him with that?
Yeah, so there's definitely a case of, you know, I'll definitely admit that we would like to review a little faster and a little sooner than we do, you know. So for those playing at home, if you were following your local club team, let's call it, you know, for me it's the Mighty D's in Melbourne. If we played in Sydney on a Saturday night, we'd be back at the club by either Sunday afternoon or Monday, and it's the 44 players and the 20 coaches and the 20 performance staff all in the same venue for the next 5 days. We've got the access to everything we need, and we do our review. And we've got a very systematic process we go through: medical review, performance review, you know, coaching, technical, tactical reviews. And by Tuesday or Wednesday, we're all training together as a group, and we're getting ready for the team next week. We've done our review, we've worked out what we need to fix, and off we go. In golf, we've got 152 teams tee off together on a Thursday, and that's cut in half on a Friday. And then half the teams are reviewing, or half the players in their teams are reviewing on Friday night, and the other half are going to have to review Sunday night or Monday morning. Now, for the most part, I had 7 days at the same venue. I finished, you know, Scottish Open. I then went up to Northern Ireland and had to play the Open. And then for players who are going to then trying to make playoffs, they flew directly from there straight back across to America to review again. Now, unless you've got your full team with you the whole time, which is not normally what happens in golf, we don't necessarily get to review as quickly as we'd like. and I'll definitely admit that. I think Matt does an amazing job, in credit to him and his team that worked with him previously. He's just very good at looking at himself in the mirror going, geez, I wasn't very good at that this week, was I? And that's really easy to work with. So, from a Ryder Cup standpoint, that's pretty much the end of the season for most players. There's a few that Matt's going to, hopefully go really close with quite a few of the other guys that play full time in the US. Play Abu Dhabi, Dubai at the end of the year and do a race to Dubai and have a fair crack. But for most of the guys, this is the off season. So for the Ryder Cup was kind of like the end of the year for us. It's a little different to do the full review because he was alternate shot Friday and Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So unless we want to review Ludwig's numbers as well, we're reviewing half the shots. Matt's really well supported by Eduardo Molinari's and his team in regards to the raw data, and then we've got a team, Nick and Ray. Big shout out to those boys from Protivity that help crunch through Matt's numbers each week as well. That give us a fair indication about where Matt is currently, and most importantly, we want to know did Matt putt up to the standard that he is used to and he would expect, and if yes, great. Why? And if no, also great. Why? It's my job overall to keep us all accountable to those numbers and those performances. And then basically, if it's putting, Phil Kenyon's the man, and Phil and Matt will go to town and go to work with the caddy. I'm Dan, and then if it's technical, we'll work with Mark Blackburn and 3D and things, and we'll look at stats and go that way. So it's about empowering the right members of the team with the right information at the right time to be able to allow Matt to perform. And that's my job.
Nice. And look, as I said before, I've watched you grow, and it's been a beautiful journey. But for those that don't know, you are a golfer, but golf isn't your primary sport. I believe hockey was, from memory. And I know that you've done a lot of work in other sports. And I also know that you're possibly the busiest man on the planet. And your beautiful wife might kill me for suggesting this, but do you look to do work in other, or are you doing any work in any other sports? And is that something that you would like to do in the future? I know you're a massive AFL fan, and do you get called in? Like, do people in Australia know about Luke Mackey? Do they know that, there's opportunities there?
I'm not currently doing anything to my knowledge in another sport at the moment. I've had the chance to work with a whole bunch of other sports. So I think something that I'm definitely doing at the moment is probably do a fair bit of mentoring and sharing in regards to, if it's the other S&C coaches or coaches in the golf, I still support Golf Australia and still work with Golf Australia. So, I've got 17 staff there that support me, and we bounce ideas off. They challenge me, I challenge them. Highly safe space for us as a group to challenge each other, and that's something that I'd hope that I never have to give up. And that group of people in particular are the ones that probably drive me and have taught me the most in my previous role of 7 years with Golf Australia full time and living in America. And then previous to that, the Victoria Institute of Sport. I think I still call a lot of people a lot of the time, and that's what I live a very nomadic life in regards to me being on the road around the world, and I have to try and make it feel like I'm in a football club every week with 25 staff around me. So you've copped phone calls from me at all different airports around the world. They're my little moments to try and learn, challenge, debrief. I'd say that's probably the networking and connection pieces. I'd say is one of my skill sets, but I don't think too many people know who I am around Australia. I'm not that important, Jay.
You are very important, and if I could afford you, holy shit, you'd be in my team. Mate, thank you so much for taking the time to do this and to share. It's pretty cool when someone gets to do something like that, and I love the energy that you bring. I love the work that you do. You're a bloody bouncy little 19, well, you weren't little, but you're a bouncy 19-year-old with a shit ton of energy, bouncing off walls like an Energizer bunny, to now someone who I use as a mentor and I look up to. So I really appreciate you taking the time, mate. But before you go, yes. I think Scotty has a task, and I think it might be for both of us.
Yeah, for both
he
of you.
He has this uncanny knack of throwing me under the bus.
Love it.
So end of each podcast, we're my idea to do something a little bit different, where we do either a quiz or throw something at the other person. So I've sent you both a little grid. It's a short golf quiz, and it's actually based on what's quite popular in the basketball world called hoop grids. So you will see, if you look at the image I've sent you, there are 3 descriptors up the top and 3 down the side. Now, if this was a basketball one, in A1 it might be Chicago Bulls, and on the other axis it might be Golden State Warriors. And the objective is to name a player who's played for both of those teams. So, as you see across the top, won the Players Championship, been ranked world number 1, and 100+ major appearances. And then down the side, won 3+ majors. First or last initial is S, and born in the Southern Hemisphere. So in that top one, we need to find a player that has won 3+ majors and also won the Players' Championship. And in the top left is a little number, so there's 10 possible answers there. 10 people who have done.
Can we start wherever we like?
You can start wherever you like. The only thing, Jay, is you can't use the same name twice in the grid.
Can I put Craig Perks in the Players' Championship box from the Southern Hemisphere?
And one trade, okay, in the Southern. You can indeed put Craig Perks in that box. Correct. You have to visualize this. I was hoping to share the screen and write the names, and you have to visualize it. But that box is done. Craig Perks.
First or last initial is S and won the Players. I'd say Cam Smith.
Cam Smith, well done.
+100 major appearances. It's a tough one. I believe Adam Scott is about to get to his 100th consecutive. So would that, and he hasn't won 3 majors, so. Oh, Adams, yeah, first or last initial is S.
Yeah.
And 100+ major appearances.
He hasn't had 100+ major appearances. Not quite.
Oh, shit.
These are all names you would have heard of too, so there's not really.
The obvious one's Tiger Woods, right? But you don't want to use him because you've got
where do you want to use Tiger?
Yeah. Been ranked world number 1, Southern Hemisphere, Norman.
Correct, Norman. Yeah.
100+ majors, born in the Southern Hemisphere. Peter Thompson.
Which one was that, Jay? 100+ majors.
100+ Southern Hemisphere. Peter Thompson.
No, hasn't played 100 majors.
$100 majors, Southern Hemisphere. Who would that Gary Player?
Gary Player, yes.
Well done, Jay. You're much better at this than me.
Yeah.
It's got the bottom line, Mackie. And Cam Smith.
Yeah, bottom line's done, and you've got Cam Smith in the Players.
First or last initial is S, and of 100+ majors. Sam Snead.
Oh, yeah, I was going to give you a clue. I was going to say there's a player with both initials. Well done, Jay.
Well done, Jay.
3+ majors and 100 majors. So what are we going for now? We've just got the one that
Ranked
plays
the middle box and the top line.
Yeah, ranked number 1 in the world and first or last name at S. Adam Scott, who's number 1 in the world?
He was ranked number 1 in the world, yeah.
There's also a guy called Scott Scheffler who goes okay. But has Scotty won the Players? Or he...
Adam Scott could have fit into either of those boxes here to win the Players as well, yeah.
But Tiger Woods, could Scotty Scheffler be 3+ and world rank number 1? Or has Scotty Scheffler won?
So has Tiger played 100+ majors?
Tiger has not played 100+ majors, no.
So then Tiger would have to go top left.
Top left, you're using Tiger for won the Players and 3+ majors?
Yeah, because then you could use Scotty Scheffler as being ranked world number 1 and 3+ majors.
World number 1 and 3+ majors, yep.
So now all we've got is top right.
And
Nick Faldo, top right?
The top right, Nick Faldo. Well done, Jay.
Wow,
so we clocked it.
Well done, you clocked it.
I get one.
Yeah, we clocked it.
No, I had 2 answers.
No, we nailed that.
Adam Scott and Cam Smith. That was it. You got the rest.
Bit of diversity. Don't tell Ballard. They're both bloody Queenslanders. He'll go off like a frog in a sock if he sees that.
Yeah, we don't want that.
No.
Right, well, thanks for playing.
What happened to Luke?
He's gone. How that was going to go. What's that?
What happened to Luke? He's gone.
I'm still here.
He's still here.
He's disappeared on my screen. My battery is very low, so I'm probably about to hang up on both of you.
Okay.
You've done very well. Really
I-
appreciate your time. Thank you for thanks for chatting to us, Luke. It was awesome.
Absolutely
Yeah.
welcome, boys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Luke.